Okay, so we've just got our first action script written, which is a stop command here in frame 1. And what I'd like to do now is introduce you to the infamous invisible button trick. Very exciting. Tell your friends. Yeah, so it's very flexible, kind of cool little trick you can do when you're up to this kind of business. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to insert a new symbol. We're going to call it Acme Inviso Button. And this is a good time to point out Flash is case sensitive. It doesn't like spaces. It doesn't like funky characters, so just pretty much stick to letters and numbers and watch your capitalization. And we'll make this a button type, and we'll say OK. So it jumps us into the Acme Inviso button, and sure enough, there's nothing in there. So I'm going to leave it all blank because it's invisible after all, except I'm going to go to the hit frame, insert a blank keyframe there. And remember, your audience will never see your hit frame, so I'm going to put in just a generic shape like a rectangle or a square, and this can vary, or depending on what you want to do, most of your button sizes, how you want most of your button sizes to be, or shapes to be, rather. I'll just go ahead and make a generic rectangle here. Red, fine. Get rid of the outline. And just to show off, I'll go to use my Align palette under Window, Align, and I'll click Align to Stage, and then we'll center it up so it'll be registered there nice and neat. That's a nice trick to be able to do. Close my Align palette here, and go back to the scene. And if I look at I'm going to drag an instance of that out to the stage now from my library. So here's my library here. And I'm going to make a new layer before I do anything. Drag it down here. I'm going to call this Inviso Buttons. So I'll know that that's where my invisible buttons are. And so if I grab my invisible button and drag it out into that layer, all that shows up is this light blue rectangle, which is the same shape as my hotspot. But when I go, and I'll put it here on, let's say I'll put it on the start here, so it'll make that hot. When I test the movie, it's invisible, so it doesn't show up in the movie. But lo and behold, when I go over this area, it's hot. It turns into a finger. So arrow, finger, arrow, finger. All right. So, and that's because the invisible button just sits there as a floating hotspot over whatever we want. So we can keep using instances of the Acme Inviso button, and we can resize them at will. And each one of these, we can have several. We can just keep dragging copies of this out onto the stage and resizing them accordingly to fit areas that we want to be hot. So I'll show you what we're going to be doing with that invisible button in the next video. But that's the way you make an invisible button. To review, you just go ahead and make any shape you want in the hit frame down here, and leave this totally blank in the other frames, and you'll just have an invisible navigation button that you can use and put over whatever you want.